Now we're going to move into the final section of our webinar today. The last, but certainly not the least, is going to be Review Week Best Practices. And the APHG teacher that is going to be presenting this section to you is Mrs. Jaela Vazquez. So I'll go ahead and pass it off to you, Jaela, and you just let me know when to move your slides.
Thank you, Annika. Hi, everyone. My camera is also not working very well, so I'm not going to test that again. And I'm just going to start presenting. My name is Jaela Vazquez. I teach at Coral Reef Senior High in Miami, Florida. And I am very lucky to be presenting with all these teachers. And I hope this review best practices helps all of you. You can start, Annika. Okay, the first thing I wanted to show was some of the resources that I use. Then I will talk about in-class review activities and how to review big ideas, and then some study tips for students that I give. Next slide. Okay, so resources I use for review. Number one, and the one place that I go to is the CED, the curriculum exam description. To me, that's the number one resource. Additionally, I do think learning concepts is important. So Quizlets, and I pay the subscription, and we play Quizlet live. Big Ideas packet that is on the Facebook page. It's really great for at-home review. I give that to my students so they can use it at home. And finally, AP Classroom, like all the other presenters have said, is a great resource for students. Next. Other activities that I do in class, and these are the ones I do in class, is unit reviews. And that obviously just unit by unit, right? Unit 6, 5, 4. And in this units, I focus on the concepts, models, theories, and processes. I divide it that way. Additionally, Quizlet Live, or I do vocabulary bingo, and also drag and drop activities, matching and sorting activities. And I have some samples in the next slide so you can see. So this is an example of my unit review. As I teach Unit 4, Political Geography, I like to put handouts. You know, I make a handout with my review, like my lecture. And again, I pick up the most important things. For example, for point 1 is political entities. It's something they need to know. So just like a major concepts, I put in a worksheet. There's types of government, unitary, federal, pros and cons. So like I do that unit by unit. And I give them the handout while I go over the presentation. Next, please. Another type of activity that I like to do in review, like week or even like Saturday review, I do this a lot on Saturday review or after school review, is I put up a list of vocabulary terms for the unit, and then they choose 16 words right there, write a term on each box, and I let students know that they'll read I'll read the definition out loud, and I'm not going to say the word, and then if they have the word that matches the definition, then they cross it out and mark it. So we play bingo, and whoever wins bingo gets a prize or some extra credit points on the exam. So I like bingo. Next. Another thing that I really find very helpful for my students is sorting. Sorting is very helpful for them, especially now that they have already learned the content. For example, topic 2, it is contemporary effects of migration. And that's a skill, right? Where a skill 2B says explain relationships in a specified content or region of the world using geographic concepts and processes. So I have that idea of effects of migration, and then we put social, political, economic, and then I put the effect on the host country and the country of origin. And then I give the answers because we don't have a lot of time in review. So then the kids are just going to sort them and put them in the right place. Now you could do this with a manipulative, or you could do it, or you could put it on a Google slide. I really think this helps them because they already know these words. They know xenophobia, they know remittance, they know brain drain, they know ethnic neighborhoods. And now it's time for them to put it as an effect. And that helps them with their permanent memory a lot. Next slide, Annika. Again, this is another type of matching that I do. This is on cultural landscapes. This comes straight from the CED, that all of these are types of cultural landscapes. So then I give examples and I make them match the correct type with the cultural landscape, the same type of idea of matching. And again, this is a great review activity. I actually did this today because I reviewed Unit 3, and they knew Sequid occupants. They knew that Istanbul's Roman and Byzantine and Ottoman layers are going to go there and Sequid occupants. So I was very, very happy about that. They also knew that cluster dispersed linear are both urban and agricultural. Land use patterns, and I was very, very happy that they remembered. So I think that activities like this are good to do at the end. Next, please, Annika. Finally, reviewing the big ideas. And this is another thing that I find very important. And again, I do use a lot of charts and a lot of graphic organizers, especially at the end. And I'm only going to go over like 2 ways that I review big ideas with my students. But the 3 big ideas are patterns, spatial organization, impacts and interactions, and spatial processes and societal change. I tell them these are the big ideas, and then we go through the CED, and I explain it to them. Next. For example, this is the impacts and interactions, and here we're looking at topic 5, lesson 10. And it's really important for students to understand cause and effect relationships, and that's what impacts and interactions is. So we go over the learning objective, and I'm like, look, it's very simple. The big ideas, impacts, and interactions. Look at this learning objective. It says, explain how agricultural practices have environmental and societal consequences. So then I'm like, let's break it down. Breaking down this LO helps students identify and remember key effects. And this will help them in everything, in preparation for FRQs and also multiple choice questions. If you go to the next slide. Here is how I do it, right? How I break it down with them. I make sure that I let them know that what the essential knowledge is and what the learning objective is. It doesn't make any sense teaching them this at the beginning of the year, like it really doesn't. But now towards the end, it's really helpful and they get it. First of all, I'm like, okay, what's the learning objective? We go over it again, and then I'm like, okay, so what are these agricultural practices that are in the EK? And we do it together. What are the environmental consequences that are in the essential knowledge? And then I'm like, what are the societal? And then they know this information, right? And now it's like, okay, so we have all the answers within the EK and the learning objective. So then I go ahead and next slide. Then I go ahead and I put it in a chart for them. I'm very, very visual. So again, I'm like, do you see how I put it in a chart? And then we go and explain again how these agricultural practices alter the landscape and what land cover is, and go over all these terms that they already knew, but just now they know that this is how they're going to be asked in the FRQ or in the MCQ about these consequences, right? Next slide. These are other examples of learning objectives that are also impacts and interactions. Here we have an interaction with challenges and debates related to the changing nature of contemporary agriculture. Then in topic 6, lesson 8, urban sustainability, there's an interaction here that I'm like, okay, guys, this is interaction. Analyze how urban planning decisions reflect and shape social, economic, and environmental outcomes. And then also another impact, which is sustainable development, that LO investigates the environmental consequences of industrialization and the role of sustainable development in addressing these issues. So going over the LOs and telling them, okay, consequences, urban planning is an interaction, just kind of, it just cements it. It makes it much easier for them to understand at the end of the day. Next slide. The other big idea that I wanted to go over was spatial processes and societal change. And I used political geography. The learning objective here is explain how political, economic, cultural, and technological changes challenge state sovereignty. Now, this is a big one, okay? It's a lot of essential knowledge, it's a lot of EKs, it's a lot of content. But by this moment, they already finished, they already know most of all of this, right? All of this content. So I like to organize my teaching strategy is that I like to organize the big idea, the LO, and the EK into a structured chart. And then I categorize each change and provide a corresponding example to illustrate how they impact state sovereignty, how each of these changes are going to impact state sovereignty. And I do that. Sometimes what I do is I'll do a handout and it'll be a drag and drop activity. So, to make it a little bit easier, especially now that you're reviewing, the kids don't have time to type or to handwrite everything. It's a more drag and drop right now for me. That's what I'm doing a lot of it. And I'm doing it on Schoology, or you can do it as a manipulative. I've done it both ways. Both ways are very helpful. But the essential knowledge, if you see here, like this is devolution, this is where we have all those case studies, Belgium, Spain, Canada. So there's a lot of content here. Here we have the supranationals in this essential knowledge. So putting it all together is very, very helpful. If you go to the next slide. So here is, for example, here we have political, the changes, evolution, and then how did this change challenge state sovereignty? And then the examples could include the fragmentation of states into autonomous regions. All of this is from the EK, such as those within Spain, Belgium, and Canada, and Nigeria, or the disintegration of states. So again, they know the categories political, the changes, evolution, and how did it show, how do you see that being challenged, that sovereignty being challenged? And you could go one by one. And then the same thing with the supranationals, globalization, communication technology, and how that facilitated democracy. Again, just putting it together, the big ideas is, it's, to me, it helps them also review the terms. If they don't know a term, they could be like, oh, what was NATO again, or what's the EU? This is where we get into that, where we can review all those terms. Next slide, Annika. And finally, this is like final week study tips for our students, right? Again, the Pomodoro system, I'm like, don't sit there and study for 2 hours, study focus, 25 minutes. Again, whatever resource all the other presenters gave were great. And I also tell them that key concepts are important. So creating charts, diagrams, the way I do it to categorize this information into political, social, cultural, it's very helpful, and visual aids are going to help them retention and understanding. I also tell them how sleep and nutrition is important. So like, it doesn't, if you're studying so much, after a while and you don't have enough sleep, it's not going to help you. And finally, the best strategy is to teach someone, right? Teach someone what you've learned. I always tell them, if you can teach it to someone, then that means you understand it, right? And then they're like, oh yeah, okay. So teach it to your mom, teach it to your brother, teach it to someone. And then that means you know it. If you look at a term and you can't explain it to me, then that means you don't know it enough for you to explain something about it or describe it. So that's pretty much all my review week study tips. I hope this was helpful for everybody. Thank you, Annika. Thank you, everyone.
All righty. Well, a big thank you to all 4 of our presenters this evening. Thank you for taking time out of your day to put together these resources. And thank you to all the attendees for taking time out of your evening as well to learn some tips and tricks to help best prepare your students for the exam. As a reminder, the American Geographical Society has a plethora of resources available for you as APHG teachers. I talked about these a little bit in the beginning, but I just remind you that all of our resources can be found on our new beautiful education page on americangeo.org. Through that education page, in addition to some of those smaller daily resources, you can also find things like the application to be a 2025 teacher fellow at our annual Geography 2050 symposium in November. You'll get the opportunity to connect with other APHG teachers from across the country, connect with a lot of professionals in the world of geography and geospatial, and have very APHG curriculum focused workshops on resources that you can take back to your classrooms. In addition to that application, our education page will also lead you to our Teen Maptivist website, where we describe the Teen Maptivist initiative. As I said, it has been very successful so far. We have around 20 chapters throughout the country right now, working and helping us, introduce students to open source public mapping. We are looking to expand the number of chapters in the fall semester. So if you're interested in that, you can also find information about Teen Maptivist through there. And if you will be present at the APHG reading in early June, there will be a more specific presentation going on during that weekend to give you guys some information about Teen Maptivist as well. We would love to have you join. All the resources that were shared in this presentation from all of our speakers and from AGS will be shared with you guys after the presentation concludes. We've recorded all of this, so we will have that recording available to you guys. And all those resources, the recording, anything additional, and these slides will be made available to you at some point during the day tomorrow. So keep an eye out in your inboxes for all of that. If anybody has any questions, I know that attendees cannot unmute their microphones and speak out loud, but you're welcome to drop those in the chat. And just another really big thank you. Thank you to Celeste, Annalisa, Jaela, Lisa. Thank you all for taking time out of your day to share these resources. And with that, we will conclude. I hope everyone enjoys their evening, and I hope that this was very useful to you and that you can get your students on the right track to be very successful for their APHG exam.